This program deals with the reality of sexual assault, dating violence, stalking, and other sensitive issues. If watching this program helps you to better understand anything that's happened to you or is happening now, please know there are resources available to you at any time. Just click the Resources tab above to see ways you can get assistance on your campus, in your area, or over the phone. If you've experienced interpersonal violence in the past, parts of this program may disturb you. We apologize in advance for this and hope you understand the need to include true-to-life material in order to help reduce interpersonal violence on campuses.
This program also contains many personal accounts of experiences with interpersonal violence. All of these stories are true and told by the people they happen to.
As advanced warning, a red square will appear in the lower left corner of the video, 5 seconds prior to and all during potentially troubling material. Should you feel the need, consider clicking the Resources tab above to learn how to find someone to talk to for help.
This module is about consent, the informed, freely given agreement to participate in sexual activity. But there's something else you need to know about first. Research on convicted sexual offenders shows a high percentage of sexual assaults are committed by a relatively small number of sexual predators who rape repeatedly, and about 90% of the sexual assaults on college students are committed by somebody they already know. Friends, classmates, even boyfriends and girlfriends. In the past, sexual assault has often been seen as somewhat the victim's fault, but sexual assault is never the victim's fault. Not anymore.
I lived in a dorm at the university. I had been there for 8 days. A guy on my floor had known this guy through high school and brought him up, and we were just hanging out in the social lounge, like watching YouTube videos. The night went on and it was really late, and obviously I wanted to go to bed. The kid who lived on my floor wanted to go to bed, so the night was winding down. At the end, one of them asked, I had given him a piece of fudge earlier, the guy that lived on my floor, and he asked if I could give him another piece. So I was like, yeah, sure, no big deal. I went back to my room to get it, and they followed me. Within a few minutes, the one guy left, and I thought the other guy would leave with him because I didn't know him, and he didn't. He stayed. And I kind of just thought he was overstaying his welcome. It became clear to me that his intentions for being there were not just being unaware that he was being impolite. His intentions were elsewhere. I told this guy that I was like, I don't want to do anything with you. I have a boyfriend, my life is elsewhere. Can you please just leave? And I just kept saying no, and I kept giving him my reasons to say no, because apparently no wasn't enough. It actually got to a point where I'm fighting, and I'm trying to do everything I can, because obviously verbally saying no isn't getting the point. So I'm trying to hurt him or just trying to make him leave. And I told him at one point, I said, "You're not gonna leave until you rape me, are you?" And he laughed at me and said, "If I was gonna rape you, I think I would know." And then he raped me.
I had never been told that a guy could be in an abusive relationship, could be the one being abused. And that continued for about 3 months. And it culminated in the last night of my freshman year. He actually tried to have sex with me, and I told him not to, and he kept going and he wouldn't stop. So, and I kept telling him no, and he wouldn't listen. And so then after that, I was really upset. I was crying, and I was trying to leave his room. And he grabbed me, and he wouldn't let me leave, and he held me down. He held me back until I told him that I loved him.
We worked together at the same fast food restaurant. A month after we met, we decided to meet outside of work. We went to a little area, kind of like a woodsy area. And I'd driven my bike there, and the moment I got into the car, I felt a little weird, like something was off. He proceeded to kiss me and touch me, and I just felt really, I felt kind of out of it, like I wasn't really there. I told him that I wasn't really ready for doing anything just yet, and then we got out of the car and kind of just played around a little bit. And then he decided to throw me onto the hood of of his car, and I was wearing a short skirt, and he decided to pull my panties down, and he further pulled himself out of his shorts, and then he raped me. And then while he was doing it, I was just looking up at the sky, and I didn't tell him to stop, but I was just kind of just wishing that it were over.
You can't think of consent as the absence of no. Consent must be the presence of yes. The surest way to know the line between sexual assault and mutual sexual activity is looking for participation, for enthusiastic consent. If someone isn't actively participating, they're not consenting. And remember, consent cannot be given by a person who is underage, drunk, drugged, or mentally impaired. There's a huge myth out there that sexual assault can sometimes be the victim's fault, that the victim somehow led the perpetrator on, or that the victim didn't resist strongly enough. But here's the deal. It's never a victim's responsibility to stop a crime. It's the perpetrator's responsibility not to commit a crime in the first place. The one thing you absolutely need to know is this. Whether we're talking about people of the opposite sex, people of the same sex, transgendered people, bisexual people, asexual people, people with disabilities, or even more than two people, sex requires enthusiastic consent from everyone involved. If you're not hearing or seeing a strong yes, you're required to assume it's a no. Not hearing no is not consent. Only hearing or seeing yes is consent. Active, willing participation is consent. Saying sexual assault is the victim's fault is like saying a carjacking victim was at fault for driving a car, or the mugging victim's fault for carrying money. We don't blame the victim of a physical attack because they weren't good enough at fighting back. In all of those cases, the fault is on the criminal, because no one has the right to carjack, mug, or beat someone. It's exactly the same with sexual assault. No one has the right to do anything sexual with another person's body without their enthusiastic consent. It's never the victim's responsibility to not get sexually assaulted, just like it's never the victim's responsibility to not get mugged or carjacked. Why? Because the absence of resistance is not consent. Consent is an informed and active yes, because without consent, it's sexual assault. And remember, consent can also be withdrawn at any time, and things have to stop immediately. So is there any excuse for being confused about this? Not anymore.
I did very poorly in my classes that semester, and I tried so hard. But there were just days when I couldn't get out of bed. We shared a dining hall. His dorm was right across the way from mine, and any moment that I wasn't in my room was a moment where I could see him. My case went on for a very long time. It took 20 months for my rape kit to come back, and in those 20 months, my GPA fell low enough that the university took my scholarship. I have to deal with it every day. Still, just even walking here, I'm scared a lot of the time. I spend a lot of time in my room alone for that reason. Because it's easier to not be around people and feel safe than it is to allow that vulnerability to enter back into your life.
About 2 weeks after my second rape, I tried to commit suicide and ended up spending 5 days in a mental hospital. I've been diagnosed with anxiety and depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, I can't walk home late at night. If I see someone who looks like my abuser, I have a panic attack. You know, it's something that I live with every day, but every single day I get a little bit better at dealing with it.
Immediately afterwards, I felt really emotionally distant from men and like boys. Whenever if men or boys passed by me like on the sidewalk or something, I would kind of like tense up and panic a little. When I did get into relationships, I was really cold, and every time they tried to like open themselves up or try to get closer to me, sometimes I would tell them about the things that happened to me, kind of like in a way to kind of push them away and kind of justify why I was being like cold to them. And then afterwards, when they were trying to leave, I would get really clingy and try to like bring them back, and then I'd become like really obsessive and dependent on them.
There was no conversation that had the words date rape when this happened to me. I never saw that anyone else was suffering for this same type of experience. I couldn't picture the future at all. I was really floating, swimming, drowning. It was a very difficult period in my life. As a 45-year-old woman, I could look back and see that there were lots of ups and downs throughout my life, and time is a true healer, and the further away from this experience that you get, the better able you are to see it, to distance yourself from it, and to process through it. I would encourage anyone who's had this type of experience to spend time with people who care for them, try and focus on the love in their lives as opposed to the negativity that surrounds their experience. I would want someone to come to terms with it and know that it was not their fault, and that if they felt any guilt, that they should forgive themselves for any perceived mistakes on their part and try to move forward. I feel great about myself now. I've moved beyond this experience. I've been successful professionally. I got my master's degree in education. I've taught for 10 years. And I have a wonderful husband. We just celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary. And I have 2 beautiful, bright, healthy children. I'm thriving.